What's up, Heat Ratio fam? We're back at it. Sunday, NFL DFS talk here on the Heat Ratio Sports Network by some of the most famous Heat Ratio personalities, myself, Dave Gloeckner, and Dan Old School Green. What's up, Dan? Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, dude, it's always a pleasure. Looking forward to this.
I'm pumped having you here. We kicked this off a few weeks ago, and we've been really getting some good talk back and forth with the people, been hitting some good plays, and I'm really interested to see where your mind's at on a day which I'm going to call Value Sunday. With all these COVID cases out there, there's a lot of value out there. What was kind of your strategy looking at the kind of lineups today?
Well, once you see Eckler and Fournette down, you immediately have to check Justin Jackson and Ronald Jones and see where their value's at. And I was surprised that they weren't jumped up in price, and they were very reasonable. So I loaded up with them. It is amazing that you can start benefiting the way you did with NBA with football. I mean, NBA last year was like, it was a gold mine if you paid attention to the COVID list. And now that it's happening in football, I'm really surprised though with football, because there have been times, for example, if when Dalvin Cook was out, Madison was never a great bargain. Yeah. They jacked up his price, but they didn't do it today. So that's another one you could jump on, but it is interesting. And at wide receiver, you have the depleted Tampa Bay Buccaneers lineup. So, you know, Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller are great plays at some a reasonable pricing. And then with Mike Williams being out, you've got Guyton and I'm drawing a blank. Help me out here.
Josh Palmer.
Josh Palmer, who I put in a lot of my lineups. So
yeah, I even think Guyton might be out today too, which even escalated. Escalated. You know, Palmer up to the 2 role.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Which he's one of my favorites, obviously today, going against one of the worst pass defenses in the league. Herbert should have a huge day. Which, you know, I'm with you. Seeing all this value out there, I'm buying down with running backs. I just think you can get similar value in the 4 or 5K range, and I'm talking about DK values. I know you play a little bit on FanDuel, but being able to pay down for those running backs where you'll be able to still get points and using your money somewhere else, such as quarterback and wide receiver, I think is the strategy I'm going with today.
No, same thing. Every lineup, other than James Robinson lineup that I have, I'm playing these reasonable running backs and then stacking my wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple guys up there in the running back world that you could absolutely, you know, pay up for if you want. I think Mixon might have a solid day. Baltimore's been okay against the run, and he's just been a guy, you know, come December, they've been leaning on a little bit. But again, I'd rather use a guy like you just mentioned. The highest guy I'll pay for today, James Robinson. He's got a dream matchup against the New York Jets, 5,900. He had volume last week. I know we both liked him. We chatted about it. He put up 17.5 on DraftKings, so he was still worthwhile. I expect even a bigger day today.
No, I think this guy is got the weight of the world off his shoulders now that Myers is out of that out of that locker room. And you know, he got a lot of touches last week, and like you said, it'll continue, and he's got the dream matchup. So yeah, I expect big things from Robinson today.
Yeah, I do, and especially now that Trevor went again with one of those games where he threw more picks than touchdowns. I think they really, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be all Robinson and a little bit of Trevor. And I actually think he comes up big in the pass catching, which is huge in DFS when you look at it. So I think James Robinson is a great play. We both talked about it a little bit earlier. We're going to flash our lineups up here shortly. But while we're talking, you know, we're talking running backs a little bit, let's just start up top. Let's start with the gunslingers. I'd love to get your take on what your favorite quarterback is today. And, you know, you can give me a 1A and 1B.
All right. So at quarterback, the ones that jumped out at me were, I guess I'll go Herbert as my 1A. My 1B would be Stafford, and my 1C would be Brady.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that jump out at me. I do like Jalen Hurts for his value, so I have him in a lineup. But if you know, you'll see shortly that one of the 3 guys I mentioned is going to be my featured lineup today.
Yeah. No, I think those are all good plays. I actually, let me pick your brain on Brady, because at first I wanted to plug him in, and seeing his numbers and seeing not having Godwin for sure. I know Evans is going to try. Brown's back. Should we really deflate his value? No pun intended with the word deflate and Tom Brady. But should we undervalue him, or should we actually expect him to, after that 9-0 shutout, to come in and rip it up? And that's where I'm in a fine balance here. Do I really want to take that chance, because he can do it, right? He can throw 4 or 5 today. Or because of his talent down, does he only play average?
Right. And that's before I even answer it, that's kind of how the NFL's been this year. It's like last year was an absolute things were flipped upside down kind of week, almost in every game, every bet. It was just a terrible, unpredictable week last week. That being said, I had Brady as one of my quarterbacks last week, and who would have thought he'd be shut out 9-0.
Yeah.
So I do expect to bounce back. Carolina is not a good team. When you think he's got no weapons, again, Tyler Johnson and Scotty Miller will all of a sudden probably have great games. I do like Jones getting, dump off passes out of the backfield. So, I mean, I think he's worth a flyer for guys that do 5 to 6 lineups with the same quarterback. That I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. Yep.
But to take a flyer on a Tom Brady lineup, I think you have to.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think using him in a low percentage situation, a low lineup situation, and taking a shot, I like it. So for me, with my quarterback plays, I'm similar. I like Herbert. Herbert, again, we talked about it earlier, just going up against that terrible pass defense that Houston has. He's down weapons as well. That's why I was leading into the Tom Brady talk, with Mike Williams out on COVID, Guyton down. But he's still got playing Eckler down as well. But that just leads me to believe this guy's going to actually be, out there running the ball as well, putting up some valuable numbers all around. Houston won last week. They beat Jacksonville, so they have a little momentum. I think this is a chance this game's a little closer than people think, and Herbert's going to have to be dialed in because they're on the outside looking into the playoffs. So it's a game they need. Think he lights it up. I like Hurts as well, as you talked about. And for my 1C, I mean, Stafford's got a dream matchup. He really does. But I'm going to look at someone that I just think people won't be playing much today, and that's Russell Wilson. The Bears are 9th worst against quarterbacks fantasy points-wise. They let up a lot. Seattle's home today. I think Lockett's back in. So there's some value there. I think Russell Wilson will put up some good numbers, and you're probably going to get him at a low percentage owned rate. I'll be playing him on a couple, small lineups, similar to your Brady theory. He's my Brady theory in this one.
No, that the same question you asked me before I answered Brady is the same kind of question you have to ask yourself with Russell Wilson.
Yep.
At what time do you cut bait or give it one more chance with this guy?
Yeah.
And this would be the week.
I think so. The Bears are just, Kirk Cousins did not have a good game against the Bears, and they're still 9th best, allowing points against quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins threw for like a career low. It was a game that he just didn't need to do much because the Bears were just turning it over. I think that changes a little bit this week. I think Seattle knows, their running game's terrible. So for me, I have confidence Russell's going to put up. I think he has high ceiling, low floor. So that's why I kind of like his play today. But same with Brady, right? There's a chance that you're going to pay 6,100. It's not terrible. He's lower than Hurts and Herbert. So, but you still got to have confidence he's going to give you at least 20. So, and I think he will.
The only thing you have to think about also is these guys, Seattle and Wilson in particular, they're not used to being in this position of being out of it. So what's their motivation? Are they going to be professionals and go out there and play, or are they kind of internally demoralized and maybe he won't have a phenomenal ending to the season? You just, that's part of it too. So this game will show you something. If he doesn't do well against the Bears, I think you got to write him off for the rest of the year.
I agree. And you bring up a great point, because that's, just not even DFS, but in sports betting, these last 3 weeks are tough to gauge the interest that teams have that are out of it. It's a slippery slope. The only thing I'll say about Russ is if he wants to cook somewhere else next year, he better play his way out these last 3 weeks, because he needs to drive up his value for Seattle. Otherwise, he's doing them a disservice. And I do think he gets traded, by the way. after this season. It's time.
Yeah.
Hey, running backs. We mentioned a little bit earlier. Give me your top 3 as well here.
Well, I mean, James Robinson for sure.
Yep.
Now I love, I mean, again, I love the low value guys. I love Ronald Jones, and I love, you know, with Eckler not being in the lineup, I love Justin Jackson. Now you have a little bit of nerves with, will the other guys get some action? You know, but Justin Jackson seems to be almost like a clone, even a little bit more of a more pop to his step than even Eckler. You know, Josh Kelly is in a doghouse a little bit, so that I'm hoping that he stays there. So I love Jackson. I mean, I'm not in love with any of the. I'm not in love with, you know, the Barkleys. You know, I'm not in love with Zeke. I'm not in love with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think you've got to go with your bargain basement guys this week. I mean, Patterson is a touchdown a week kind of guy against Detroit. So you know, he's got decent. I mean, he's not a bargain per se versus Jackson and Jones. But even a guy like Cordell Patterson, I love him this week as well.
Yeah, especially against that Lions defense that we've seen has been so susceptible against the run. For me, I'm with you on the James Robinson talk. You got to put him in most of your lineups, as will most other people, and that's understood and well. I love the Jordan Howard play. He got
I forgot about him.
One less carry than Miles Sanders last week. Miles, you know, got the more yards per carry, so he's worth a little bit more. But I think if you're going to go 50-50 on the carries, and Jalen Hurts isn't going to steal the 1-yard touchdowns, I think Jordan Howard's got a chance to punch one in today and be super valuable at 4,300 on DraftKings. So I love Jordan Howard. And then lastly, I'm looking at Jamal Williams out of Detroit. He's back and healthy. 2 games before he got COVID, he was averaging 17 touches per game. They're saying he's going to split the carries, but they did keep DeAndre Swift on the sidelines. So he's splitting the carries with a rookie named Reynolds. So I really think that he's going to end up getting more of the carries. And again, Atlanta's soft too. So it's one of those games that I think you can get some really good value out of a Detroit running back, which is sometimes unlikely. So I like Jamal Williams at 5,000 on DraftKings as well. Those are my 3 good running back plays, and I'll be playing them in a lot of my lineups.
Yeah, Jamal Williams is a good one. You know, in all my, it's funny. I kind of have a philosophy, and I try to stay away from bad players from bad teams at certain situations.
Yeah.
And you know, a bad team will generally throw the ball more. So, like, you know, that's why sometimes I'll fill a lineup with a Brandon Cooks.
Yep.
You know,
yeah.
And today, you know, we'll talk about shortly, obviously the guy who's an up and comer with Detroit at the wide receiver position who still has value. Well,
then let's just go right there to our wide receiver picks, and I'll lead off with you. I'm hearing some Amon-Ra.
Yeah, well, St. Brown is he's been a nice player.
Yeah.
And he's definitely got a chemistry. Our boss Jigsaw Tony Cotillo was all over him last week, and nailed it. So props to Tony. You know, I was all over Kirk last week. We got that one. I was all over Gabriel Davis last week.
Yeah,
we nailed that one. So, you know, he's going to have another good game, I believe, against Atlanta, for crying out loud. And again, it'll even be better, in my opinion, for Goff and St. Brown if Williams has a good day, because you can never not minimize what play action can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love St. Brown as a value. But you also referenced Josh Palmer. We've also referenced Tyler Johnson. So Scotty Miller. These are the value plays you've got to jump on. But when you get value plays, and here's a scenario. We have as many value plays at wide receiver as we do at running back. But I don't love the high end running backs to parlay off the low end wide receivers, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas I love the high end wide receivers off of the low end running backs. So jump on Keenan Allen, jump on Cooper Kupp, jump on Tyreek Hill if you can get if you're feeling comfortable with our value running back picks.
Yeah, I love it. Kupp is an auto play today. Minnesota is a dream matchup for you fantasy players that are still in the playoffs. You got one today. He probably carried you there last week, and I think he's going to have another one. I agree. You pay up for him today. On my side, I also like a high value Jamar Chase. Jamar's one game against Baltimore this year was a highlight reel. He put up 201 yards. I think he's due. Since that game, he's got like 350 yards total. He's been a little quiet. He did have the game the other week in overtime where he did catch 2 touchdowns. That was against San Fran. But I think he's due for another one of those games. And what better than to pretty much put Baltimore out of playoff contention? I think Jamar Chase knows the big, he knows when it's big time. Joe knows when it's big time. I think he has a good game today. He's worth the value of 7,100. I talked Josh Palmer earlier. I love him. Young guy that's been flashing up. But and you talk some of the other value plays. And then lastly, I'll put in Tyler Lockett. When he's been healthy and he's been playing, he is absolutely their number one anymore. He's had fantasy points averaging 22 per game in his last 4, and now he's back and healthy off the COVID. You're getting him somewhere in the 61, 6,200 range on DraftKings, 67. So I love Lockett. You're right. We're paying up for receivers today, but I still do have a couple of those cheap ones, like a Palmer. I like your idea with Tyler Johnson. I think he is definitely, clearly, the number 2. I think Scotty Miller is that kind of slot guy where Tyler can play the outside, can play the inside. He will be on the field 90+% of the snaps probably. So, yeah, I like those. Let's wrap it up real quick here before we flash our lineups with the tight end position. I know you got one that's a little close to our hearts.
Yeah, I look for Dallas Goddard to keep his mojo going. Great matchup against the Giants. Listen, he had how many targets did he have last week? He had well over 100 yards. He had, I believe, 8 receptions, and he even had a couple drops mixed in there. So if he catches at least one of those drops, he probably gets another 50 yards out of that. The old hacky sack interception off his after he dropped it.
Terrible.
But that being said, they're finally featuring him and targeting him the way they should be, because he's an elite athlete, and I think he's going to start trending to be a top 5 tight end in this league. So I do love myself some Goddard. And again, if you want to go a little higher end with what's happening in Tampa Bay, I like Gronk this week as well. And I think most of my lineups, and again, when I loaded up one lineup with value receivers and running backs, and I was able to squeeze Mark Andrews as a tight end. Again, question there about who their quarterback's going to be.
Yeah.
So, is he worth the money when he's not? Is it
Josh Johnson?
Josh Johnson again on his 40th team.
Yep.
So, but tight ends are the security blanket for any quarterback. Yep. So and Mark Andrews just knows how to get open. So, generally my lineups today are very Goddard heavy. You can't go wrong with the Higbees and the Knoxes of the world as well. But I have a lot of Goddard in my lineups, as you referenced.
Yeah, I like it. I like Goddard a lot too, especially. I don't want to say the Minshew opened him up, but I mean, we saw what could happen with an offense that focused on Goddard when Minshew was in there, and Hurts decided to, when he was back in, like, well, all right, I do have this guy, right? I can use this guy, because the last game he played the Giants, he only had one, I think, reception for 0 yards, 1 target. It was embarrassing because Hurts was, trying to wing it downfield the whole time. And then you see some of the game tape from, the other day where he did check down. He did use Goddard, and then he did use him in the long game. So I'm hoping, and my confidence in Goddard is rising with Hurts based upon last game. I would have been more scared about Goddard with Hurts in previous games, but after last game, I'm with you. 5,100 good value. I like CJ Uzomah. He's averaged just about 6 targets game last 3 games. Baltimore is 8th, allowing the 8th most points to fantasy tight ends. I just think he's got a chance to get one in the end zone. And as long as we get one in the end zone, you're getting your value at 3,000. So he's one I'm really looking at. And as always, if I got to pay up a little bit, I'm looking at Kyle Pitts. It's bad team versus bad team. Atlanta still thinks they have a shot. Pitts is really their number one. I know Russell Gage, you got the name up there, and he's had some great fantasy weeks in recent weeks. But I think Pitts can put up a big game as well. But I'm kind of settling for the Goddard / Uzomah range, kind of going low so I can buy my value into the other positions.
No, Uzomah is a great pick. It's funny. I play him. I always play him the wrong week. Yeah. I have a line in fantasy is don't chase the points from the previous week. And often, Uzomah just had a 2 touchdown week. Let's give him a flyer this week, and he does nothing. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely a good value if you want to stack your lineup.
The other thing about him, he played Baltimore this year once already, obviously, and had his second highest game, 24 fantasy points on FanDuel. He had a big game where he got 3 catches for 91 yards and 2 touchdowns. That was a shootout that game. Don't know if it'll be quite the shootout again. But again, looking at these games in the past, showing the history of how Cincinnati attacked Baltimore, it's through the air. So I'm hoping we see the same result today. That's why I'm big on Chase and Uzomah. There's your plays from FanDuel. And, Stafford, again, dream matchup. Got to pair him up with Kupp. Love it. Cordero Patterson, another dream matchup. Ronald Jones, I like it as long as he doesn't fumble. As long as he doesn't get in Arians' doghouse. Because they got Keyshawn Vaughn. They could run out there. But if they want to pound the ball, it's Ronald Jones. St. Brown, we mentioned, Tyreek, Goddard, and then Josh Jackson. Hey, I think that's a gamble, but it could pay off real high. And so I like it.
Well, it's Justin Jackson.
Oh, yeah, I said Josh.
Yeah, it's okay. No, it's okay. And don't forget, Kupp's in there too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a risk reward lineup for sure.
I love it. That's the only way you win at this stuff.
Yep.
And with me, on the other hand, I am going to throw Hurts in my main lineup. I think it's funny to say, but a loss like that, what they had against the Giants, I think really has motivated this guy. I think he's going to come out and try and put an exclamation mark on that game. It was the worst of his career. We're going to see the best Jalen Hurts I think we've seen in a while today. I look for 200-plus yards passing, multiple TDs, and a good amount on the ground as well. I'm with you on the James Robinson, pairing up Jordan Howard and Goddard with Hurts. Little risky only because the Giants play a lot of games in the under category. But I'm liking the chances today that we're able to get a lot of yards on it. As we did last time, we outgained them by 2-1. Had over 400 yards. And then obviously the Kupp, the Jamar Chase, and Jamal Williams. I'm really banking on that today. So we'll see, man. It's going to be fun. Obviously, we've talked about a lot of – you can mix your lineups anyway with these values that are out there. And then the high target plays. Obviously, you can fade or get that action. So we'll see, Dan. But I'm looking to a big money day. And hope you are as well.
No, I am. And we shared our lineups before the show. We have a lot of the same. I don't have Miles Sanders in any of my lineups.
Mm-hmm.
And I have Jordan Howard in a few, and I look for him, the vulture, some goal line action away from Miles Sanders. So I think it's a great play and a great value.
I love it, man. Well, that leads us 10 minutes left till kickoff. Fly Eagles fly today. Have some fun with it.
Get these lineups in.
Yeah, get them in. Happy holidays, everyone. And as always, big things happen at Heat Ratio Sports. You're going to see a lot of us out there. And we always appreciate the love, the comments, the helps, the likes, and everything in between. And until then, Dan, I'm sure we'll do this again. Have a great Sunday.
Take care, everyone.